Arizona's coming off a devastating loss to Oregon in which Khalil Tate was held to only 37 yards and his Heisman hopes were just completely shattered. And Arizona State is coming off a huge win against Oregon State in which it looked like they were playing a high school team.
Arizona State has the leg up in the passing category on offense, though. They averaged 255 yards per game. And Manny Wilkins, we haven't talked much about him this season, but he's on par for breaking 3,000 passing yards in this game. He's had 14 touchdowns, only 4 interceptions, and he's throwing at about a 64%. Not too bad. And then we have the red zone offense in particular. We love to talk about red zone here on RedZone to EndZone. And on 41 attempts, there is only one time they haven't converted inside the red zone. And of those attempts, 30 have been touchdowns. The other 10 have been field goals. This is a big deal for them. They're tied with Georgia right now in that category, especially as they go into this game. They face a team that struggles defensively. They're just going to continue to boost those numbers.
Yeah, Arizona needs to step it up defensively if they want to have any chance, especially in the future. But this year, the rushing offense, even after the struggles they had last week against Oregon, they're still averaging 331 yards on the ground, which is just incredible. It's the best of any Power 5 conference team this year. Their rushing attack has been amazing, especially since Khalil Tate took over. And they've been extremely explosive. Once again, they didn't have a single explosive play last week. But normally in their past 6 games, they've had at least one run, not just pass, but one run of 60 yards or more in the last 6 games, which is just incredible. That continuous, not just regular explosive, not just a normal 20-yard gain per game, but 60-plus yards. And a lot of those, they had 4 straight games in which they had a 70-yard run or longer. And they score. They have the 6th-ranked scoring offense in the country. A lot of that's due to their rushing and huge explosive plays. They get over 40 points a game, which has been absolutely amazing to watch. They haven't played the best defenses, and when they have played some good defenses, they've struggled a little bit, but still that average of over 40 points has been pretty incredible.
It has been. It's one of the better seasons they've had in quite some time. Khalil Tate's even led them to a short run in the top 25. But when you look at their weaknesses, defense is the big thing they need to work on. The Pac-12 is notorious for high-powered offenses, but Arizona is caught towards the back of the pack when it comes to defensive play. They let the other teams run all over them. They're out of position. They lose their man. It's a mess, and that's evident by the fact that 3 teams alone have put up over 600 offensive yards against them. They cannot continue to do this as they play Arizona State, because Arizona State can definitely take advantage of this, especially since they have a strong passing offense, which in particular Arizona struggles with the secondary.
To be fair, they're not as bad as Oregon State's defense.
They are the Thomas Tyner when it comes to turnovers. They've had 17 this season. Interceptions in particular, for a team that doesn't pass, they've had 11 total, Khalil Tate having 8 of them. That's pretty bad, something that they definitely need to clean up. He has almost as many interceptions as touchdowns.
Yeah, but when you're playing Arizona State's defense, that doesn't matter too much. Their secondary has been pretty bad this year. They rank 119th in the country, and a big part of why is because of how often they blitz. They blitz more than any other team in the Pac-12, and they have one of the highest blitz rates in the entire country, which leaves their secondary and their young, fairly inexperienced corners on islands consistently, which has plagued them a lot this year. Every once in a while they'll get a big play, a big tackle for loss, a sack, or something of that nature, but on average, they've been giving up huge passing plays after huge passing plays, and their rush defense is also struggling. Not entirely sure why that is, but they do give up 173 yards on the ground, and against an amazing rushing offense in Arizona, that's something that you just can't allow, otherwise Arizona is going to completely take over this game.
Talk about a big playmaker. N'Keal Harry is Manny Wilkins' go-to player. In fact, he's the only sophomore in the country to have started and received a pass in every game he's played at Arizona State, and he racks up those yards with 957 for 5 touchdowns. But back to those big plays, he averages 14 yards per reception. That's huge for this Arizona State team. who will probably get very big plays out of this week's secondary Arizona brings.
Yeah, and a key part of this Arizona defense, definitely not a strong defense, but they do have a few, okay players. Kalen Wilborn, he's leading the team in sacks and tackles for loss. He has 6 sacks and 8 tackles for loss. He's a true freshman who's continuing to improve every week. And, he's able to get double-teamed and triple-teamed and still put up the stats that he's been putting up has been pretty impressive for a guy who's as young as he is. Neither of these teams have good defense, and neither of them have been very consistent throughout the year. I think Arizona State's going to come out on top. I think they're the more well-rounded, especially on the offensive side of the ball. And I do think their defense is significantly better than Arizona's.
Their defense is definitely better. It's interesting because these teams, it's going to be very high scoring. These teams have complete opposite ends on offense and defense. And I think it's going to make for an interesting game, but it's going to be who can take advantage of the other team's strength and weakness. At this point, I want to say Arizona State's going to do a better job this game, but I'm going to go with Arizona and Khalil Tate. I think that after last week's performance, they're revved and ready to go to be put back on the map. I think his Heisman looks suffered a bit, and he's going to be hungry at getting himself back in the talks.
Yeah, if he has another Thomas Tyner-esque 300-yard rushing performance, you could definitely hear his name back, at least getting a mention for going to New York towards the end of the season.
If you enjoyed this matchup, be sure to check out our other rivalry games. And also, if you haven't checked out our Dizzy Sports Challenge, check it out. It's about 5 minutes of pure laughter as you watch both of us fail at sports.
It was a great time. It's about 5 minutes of watching us just repeatedly fall on our face and be possibly the most unathletic you could imagine.
Yeah, Griffin definitely was a little messed up by spinning around too many times.
My knee is still cut up after that. Still bleeding.
The great thing is you don't feel it, though, because you're just so messed up.
Oh, my gosh. It was bad.
I face-planted, and I didn't even feel it. I was laughing.
Best GIF you will ever see.
That is true. Thanks for watching. I'm Janae Muchmore.
And I'm Griffin Parkrose.
And you're watching RedZone to EndZone. Have a great weekend.